Hey, what's up, guys? It's N Squared Sports coming back at you with another video. Today we're doing the NFC South. We're going to start with the New Orleans Saints. They went 13-3 last year, and some people could have said they got screwed over last year. So I have them going 6-10 this year. I have their 4 being 6-10. Their ceiling being 11-5. Their schedule is a lot tougher, I think, this year. So what do you think?
So my floor and ceiling is actually a little higher than his. It's actually 7-9, 12-4, but I think my opinion on them is a little bit lower because I can see them going 12-4 easily, in my opinion. But my issue is we had a whole video. The first NFL video on this channel was me talking about the decline of the Saints.
Yeah,
I believe Breeze's arm talent's going down. I don't believe in this. I have a hard time putting faith in this team, because I feel like they're still focused on the past. And this sounds something like Colin Cowherd would say, and he has said this, that they're focused on the past and they can't get over the whole, like, screwed over and going to the Super Bowl with the Rams.
Yeah.
That being said, I think there's some truth to that. I think there's going to be a little bit of a hangover. Now, you can go look at that other video. It's a longer video of us talking and me talking about it.
Yeah,
really, it's pretty much me talking about how I'm lower on them. So some players to watch is the number 2 wide receiver, because really they got Ted Ginn, I think he's 36. He's getting up there in age, and he's supposed to be a speed wide receiver. His speed's going to be declining.
Yeah.
Traquan Smith is supposed to be replacing him. Can he fill that number 2 void? Maybe, if he can, hopefully. Also, watch Breeze, watch his arm talent. If it's going down, I don't know how much longer this team, or how dominant this team can be. Because what was so great about Breeze is that he could place the ball anywhere he wanted to on the field. And if his talent's going down, that team will go down. That team lives through Breeze in the running game. Which brings me to the next player, is Latavius Murray. Can he replace Mark Ingram's role? Can he be the number 2 back? Can he be the bruiser for Alvin Kamara? Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, so with that point you made about the number 2 receiver, it might have to be Alvin Kamara sometimes. I mean, that's just the truth, because he's a pretty good pass catcher out of the backfield. And I think Traquan Smith will step up, but I think Alvin Kamara will take a lot more snaps, maybe in the slot, out wide even, just because I have Latavius Murray, who is a good running back. Like, I think he can do what Mark Ingram did. And I think Alvin Kamara is going to be more involved in the passing game, especially like short little routes that Breeze can just dump it off to him and he can make his own play. And I think Michael Thomas is a pretty good medium route runner, so he can make it easier for Breeze. So I think, Breeze might be going down a little bit, but I think the players around him realize that and will help him a little bit more with that. So a game that I think people should watch is Week 2 versus at the Rams. That's the biggest game to me, because they're facing the team they lost to, and they're gonna want to win that game. Like, they're gonna want to just punch them in the mouth. So I think that's a good game to watch. So anything else?
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of emotion in that game, and I sort of want to see this emotion. I want to see the Saints get fired up and pissed off at the league. That's what I want to see. Just because, I mean, it's going to be a good story. But in seriousness, it's a good game, NFC game, probably going to be competing for the number 2 seed, or possibly in the future, or maybe fighting for that 3 or 4 seed, or one of the seeding spots. Also, important game at the Falcons Week 13, which is Thanksgiving, Thursday night. Going to be a massive game to determine who wins the division. Which brings me to the Falcons. And Nick, what do you got about them?
Yeah, so I have their 4 this year at 4-12, and their ceiling at 8-8. They went 7-9 last year, so I kind of fit right in the middle of what they did last year. I think they could go all the way to 8-8, but I think they'll probably not be as high. I think they have the Saints and Panthers are, I think, just better than them. They have a talented roster, but I don't know. They have a decently tough schedule, so I don't think they'll. I think they'll probably be around, 6-10, 7-9 is what record I would have them at.
Yeah, I have the floor of them as 6-10, and their ceiling is 11-5. I'm higher on them because I believe in Matt Ryan. He's grown on me a lot. Last year he had, quite frankly, one of the most underrated seasons.
Yeah.
He was MVP caliber last year, where his numbers were just slightly below his MVP season, and no one talked about him. Not at all. He got snubbed from the Pro Bowl as well. Devontae Freeman is back. A lot of their injuries are coming back, but I want to state that their schedule is hard, and they got a competitive division. Not necessarily hard, but it's pretty competitive. Can they get over these teams? I don't know. They also got a new offensive coordinator, and usually Matt Ryan is not as good with a new offensive coordinator, but he has worked with Dirk Cutter before, so we'll see how that goes. Players to watch is Devontae Freeman and Ito Smith. They lost Tevin Coleman in free agency. I want to see how them two work. Can they stay healthy? Because I believe both of them suffered. Well, Devontae Freeman suffered a season-long injury week 2, and Ito Smith had some little injury issues throughout the season, but I think they can do it. That team, the Falcons run and play action, and they need the run game. Also, Dan Quinn, I think if they don't have a good season this year, I think he's out. I think he's fired. Yeah. So some big games to watch. Eagles week 2, that's going to determine seeding, possibly wild card seeding, depending on how you see the Eagles. And at the Niners week 15, which
that one too.
If you want to explain that.
Yeah, I think it's just towards the end of the season, and that's a game where it's not going to be easy game, but they might need it, and so I think that's why it's important, because it's an away game, and it's not. 49ers are an interesting team. We'll talk about them later in another video, but they're an interesting team because they're kind of right in the middle of they're hard, but then you can still beat them, and so I think it's just a game where they're not going to really want to play the 49ers that week. But they need to win it, so I think that's why it's important. Also, I just want to say, Matt Ryan, if you do fantasy football, he's a beast in fantasy football, so draft him. So I agree with you with his stats. His stats are really good. I think the wide receivers on the Falcons are not their concern. I think it's going to be, like you said, the running backs are going to determine how far that offense goes, basically.
So the Carolina Panthers. I'll start us off on this one. The floor for the Carolina Panthers I had is 5-11. The ceiling 11-5. I really don't believe it's going to be 11-5. More so, I believe it's 7-9, 8-8. I know there's the big meme that it's pretty much every other year they go to the playoffs or they're a good team. I don't see this in this team really. I mean, you got to watch for Cam Newton's health, and DJ Moore is their number 1 wide receiver. Christian McCaffrey's a stud. I mean, he's a stud in fantasy. He's a stud. I mean, he's one of the best in the game right now. I'm just concerned. I mean, they fell off a cliff last year. Not to oversaturate that analogy of falling off a cliff, but I mean that was the really textbook definition of that. They were undefeated, I believe, for the first 6.
I think they were 6-2 when they started falling off, and then I think they finished 6-10.
Or I think it was 8-8 or around there.
I don't know, but let's see. I was supposed to tell you all that. They went 7-9 last year, so I think they went 6-2 and finished the season 1-7. So that's pretty much falling off a cliff.
I want to see how this team can really play. I mean, again, competitive schedule, competitive division. Can they step up to the plate? Can Cam Newton stay healthy? That's a big one. And just like I said about Dan Quinn, Ron Rivera last season, I place money on that it's last season. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, so I have their floor at 7-9 and their ceiling at 11-5. Also, I think it's going to come down between the Saints and the Panthers in the division this year. I love the Panthers. They are probably my second favorite team, and Christian McCaffrey is probably my favorite NFL player. So I love this team, and I'm hoping that they do well this year. I'm going to be watching all their games. I think their most important game is going to be Week 12 at the Saints. It's just going to be a big game at the Saints, kind of towards the middle, but kind of nearing the end of the season. It's going to be an important game, especially if they start to fall off like they did last year. If they can win that game, I think it'll boost their confidence. I think Cam Newton's health is an obvious one, that he needs to stay healthy. And I think DJ Moore, how far he can go as that number 1 receiver he can develop, then that'll help their chances a lot. And I really like this team. I think they're going to be battling out with the Saints. So that's what I have with them. Anything else?
Not just biggest games at is Week 8 49ers and at the Saints Week 12.
Okay, so now we're going to be talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They went 5-11 last year. I have them this year going between their 4-3-13 and their ceiling 6-10. I'm very low on them, and it's mainly because of Jameis Winston. I just don't believe. I know you love him because he went to Florida State, but I just don't think he's the answer. I don't think he's ever been the answer, and I think they need to move off of him, to be honest with you. But and with the division, like you said, it's competitive, not necessarily great, but it's very competitive. So they'll win a couple of games, but I don't think with their schedule and their division that they're going to have a chance.
So the Bucks, this is interesting here. The Tampa Bay Bucks, I have their floor as 5-11, and their ceiling is 10-6. Now I could absolutely see the argument for under 5 wins, and if they had under 5 wins, I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't believe they will. I believe in Winston. I have been, but I do believe this is his last year to prove anything. Yeah. If he's not, he is out of there, and he's going to find himself on another team, probably backing up or fighting for a starting position.
Yeah. Kind of like Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, exactly like him. I believe, though, I thoroughly believe in Bruce Arians. I love Bruce Arians, one of my favorite coaches. A great guy and a great coach. He has worked with Carson Palmer, Andrew Luck, and those two quarterbacks one of them, Carson Palmer is sort of like a borderline Hall of Famer, Hall of Very Good, but he was fantastic when Arians was there and Carson was in his prime or the end of his prime. I believe that his offense is going to suit Winston's play style, but Winston needs to stop at the turnovers. And this is the players to watch here is Winston. He himself is going to define this whole entire team. If he can play well, I believe this team can go probably more 9-7. That's where 8, 9, 7. Watch Chris Godwin if you're a fantasy player. Chris Godwin's going to be amazing this year, especially in PPR. I love him. Ronald Jones, also, you might want to watch him. Bruce Arians loved using David Johnson. Not to say that Ronald Jones is David Johnson by any stretch, but he's going to use a running back, so I want to see how Ronald Jones will do. So,
yeah, I think another player to watch might be O.J. Howard, their tight end. He's a guy, if he can step in and be a good receiver, I think with Godwin, Mike Evans, and O.J. Howard, that could be one of the better wide receiver combos in the league, I think. But Jameis Winston is going to define this team, I think, this year, and I just don't. My opinion on him now is that he's just going to lead them to 4 or 5 wins. So, some games to watch, or one game to watch, I think, is Week 4 versus the Rams. It's just a tough. Every game's going to be tough for this team, I think. So, really saying one game is not much. But I think the division games and Week 4 versus the Rams,
I just have the division games because I think if they want a chance in this division or to even go to the playoffs, they need to win the division games. So
yeah, basically. So that is the NFC South. Stay tuned for the rest of the NFC teams, and we'll see you guys next time.